Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 6 of the Essential Aromatica podcast. I'm your host, Amy Anthony of NYC Aromatica, bringing aromatherapy expertise to New Yorkers, be that in person or through the workforce, in your workplace, through aromatherapy experiences. So, all of us here in New York and beyond can integrate real aromatherapy into our lives to decrease stress and tension, enhance immunity, increase clarity, energy, morale, and promote, yeah, you guessed it, overall well being. Also, offering one on one bespoke aromatherapy sessions in a cozy studio in the Gramercy Park neighborhood. So, welcome to this episode, Season 4, Episode 6. I have a few ideas in the works, but they are not ready to share yet. So, this episode presented an opportunity to say hello again and revisit why I started this podcast and share a couple golden nuggets. And every time I say golden nuggets, I think of Dear Lopa, Season 2, Episode 6. So, firstly, I don't think I've done this. I want to give a shout out to the lovely individual who gave me guidance and I don't want to say courage because that's your courage is your own, right? But this person was really integral in helping me start this podcast, and that is the Reverend Ben DeHart. So I still volunteer every Thursday for the most part at the church he ministered at. He would help us out and be part of the ministry. And he's since moved to a parish in Brooklyn, New York. So a shout out to Reverend Ben DeHart. I was going to say Dr. DeHart. He is also the co-host of the podcast Our Triune Pod. So sending Ben a huge thank you and check out his podcast. He's doing great work, doing really great stuff in Brooklyn. So really congratulations to him and all he's doing. So, back to this podcast. Hello again. And I want to take a few minutes to share why I started this podcast. And honestly, the pandemic created big gaps for us, big losses, and some of us lost a lot more than others. So, truth be told, I did not lose any loved ones during the pandemic, but, many of us lost different things. And when the aromatherapy school I was teaching at closed, that left a huge hole. And honestly, that space, the connection was amazing with the people that came into that school for either it was certification class or for a one-off workshop. And sharing what I loved so much with others was gone. And the podcast was honestly an attempt and an excuse to connect and to continue sharing. So, you know, through the podcast sphere, there's no in-person class. So I'm just sharing thoughts into the ether and I record and I publish and I hope for the best. That something I say resonates with someone, helps someone, inspires someone. So please reach out if something is a spark for you. If you want to hear more of something, I'd love to hear from you. And this goes back to in-person teaching. One way when I became a teacher to not get caught up in what other people thought of me or if I don't know the right answer. I'm like, if I'm teaching two people or five people or 30 people, if I share something that touches one person and shifts them, I did my job as a teacher. I'm not, you're not here to please everybody, right? And I think that I know that that's empowering. So that was one reason why I started the podcast, and it's been great. And thanks for being with me here. And there's two other core reasons, and one of them was to connect with nature. And of course, there's a podcast episode about this, season 2, episode 4, Connection, Nature, Aromatherapy. And really, in a nutshell, because over the years I've shared this story a lot. I'm not sure if I fully shared it on here, but I found, or excuse me, aromatherapy found me. I moved to New York City. I went to school full time, worked full time, went into corporate America as I was finishing my degree. And as soon as I moved here, I knew I was missing something. I'm an outdoor person. I grew up in near farmlands, wetlands. We went camping a lot. I was always out gardening, and I knew I was ungrounded. I'm like literally, I'm on the fourth floor of a walk up in Brooklyn, and I'm so ungrounded. And you go through life. I went through life. I was doing what I quote was supposed to be doing. I was getting the job, paying my bills, got an even better job, blah, blah. But I was always lacking, and I always went back to plants. And the essential oils crept into my life. I found them incredibly fascinating. And honestly, after got into and fell down this rabbit hole quite gleefully, I suddenly was obsessed and was became certified and all this stuff. I looked back and I knew that aromatherapy was a way for me to connect with nature when I can't fully connect. So this is a huge message of the podcast, and maybe I don't say it enough anymore, but when you are like, oh man, I'm feeling so depleted, so XYZ, I can't breathe fully. I'm not able to go to my pottery class or my yoga class, or I really want to do X, but I can't. Pull out your bottle of essential oil that helps you breathe. When you can't go outside for the stretch break, but you need to get out your essential oil, have that break. And it's so important. And I do have notes here. I just put this episode together literally just before I started recording. Yeah, I just have a note here that I remember gleefully falling into this after getting a couple bottles of essential oil from Whole Foods, I believe. And I'm like, what are these? And I went to my first workshop here in New York City and I bought my first book. And I remember I still have that book. And I bought it at the Barnes and Noble on Union Square in Manhattan. That place has always been an anchor for me, and it's still to this day in business. So again, a reason is to connect with nature through aromatherapy and to share that through this podcast. And a third reason is to attempt to make aromatherapy accessible. And I will share this. I was teaching a workshop at a high school in Brooklyn, and towards the end, this girl, an individual had to leave, and she came up to me, and she was leaving, and I think she was a bit surprised, if I recall, and she said, "I thought aromatherapy was just for rich white women," and I was like, "Wow." I didn't skip a beat, and I said, "Plants are for everybody," and to that day, that is my message. So even though in aromatherapy we specifically work with concentrated essential oils, correct, they might not be accessible to everybody, or you try to educate people on where to find good oils, like don't buy that stuff on Etsy, don't buy that stuff on Amazon that are in packages that the price is too good to be true. So the whole thing is about connecting with nature. So we can take a walk, go to a local park, drink an aromatic tea. It could be like thyme or rosemary when you have congestion. Make literally the tea. You're getting some of the essential oils, not in the concentrated way, but you have that connection with the plants. Season food with lemongrass and ginger, your black pepper. And that's just a way, it's a touch point to be like, yes, aromatherapy is working with nature. It's working with our nervous system. It's working with emotions and memory and all this really great stuff and our immunity, all this stuff. It is about how can it be accessible? So these little bottles, what do I do with them? Where do the oils come from? The Luna Aroma series was and still a big part of that. And how can these concentrated aromatic substances help us connect with ourselves? How can they help us connect with nature? And, that's it. Go outside, go to a park, look at the plants, see who else is around there. You start to see insects and birds, and there's this connection. And when we can start to work with the aromatic plants and cook with them, and not even really having the concentrated essential oil, it's about getting out of our heads, having that connection, and reaping the benefits of it from just feeling a little better to when I get those molecules into myself, I'm really helping myself by having those secondary metabolites in my body to help kill bacteria, help with immune support, antioxidants. And let's say there's a memory of, oh, so and so made this one dish and they had lemongrass in it, or peeling an orange makes me think of my grandmother. Do it, right? It's really, really important. So I have written here, and this is important. Um, it's in line with this. I know there's a lot of other podcasts out there, a lot of blogs, a lot of books and journals and online learning, incredible aromatherapy schools to learn from. And I'm but one voice in the wind. I'm a part of the mix. I'm part of the offering. And again, my goal is to share how can we work with the oils and love them and have them as reminders that we are a part of something so much bigger than us. That earth, that the universe provides. Like if that sun wasn't here, the stars weren't here, like all of this stuff is so much bigger. And within that, it's the reminder of sustainability and all of the people involved, all of the plants involved, the plants' life, the insects that are there, the symbiosis, the whole web of life. And then the harvesting, the distilling, the distributing, and the whole process to get that bottle in front of us. It's so much. And I have here, there's so much to consider that it can overwhelm, but it doesn't have to. And we have to remember to breathe. And if we need help, we can turn to an essential oil or a blend to help us. And you've heard me share this a few times over the seasons. Remember that 30 seconds to 3 minutes of smelling an essential oil, liberate it from the bottle on a cotton pad, can create a big but subtle shift in how you feel holistically. Just today, I was with someone, they have a sinus infection, and I was doing a treatment. I'll say treatment. It's a process I'm doing with hydrosols. And they got and were getting ready to leave and said, they're like, I can breathe better now. And they weren't with me that long. And honestly, we had some essential oils, but also we were working with hydrosols. So I just looked, they were leaving. I'm like, well, there you go. Look what happened. So, just in summary, connect with nature. You know, the pandemic created a gap and out came this podcast. So thank you again, Reverend Ben DeHart. And also connect with nature and trying to make aromatherapy accessible and kind of getting outside the read a book, you know, because you can go to books and learn so much. But this is just one voice sharing something about aromatherapy. So speaking to remember to breathe, right? Because just before I was saying about, yeah, that's all we have to do is let's just pause. I just published an article on rhododendron anthophogen. And honestly, in just 2 words, this essential oil fosters lucidity. And when there is overwhelm, I used that word before, when there's overwhelm, there are so many essential oils to go to. Choose one of them, right? It doesn't have to be rhododendron, anthophogen. Maybe you just want to take a walk outside, call a friend. You could do jumping jacks, but you know, there's so many things we could do. It's not always about the essential oil. But I just revisited and published this article on rhododendron. And when I've been spending time with it, its message again and again is when you take that chattery mind, let's just talk about the mental, emotional parts here, without dulling the senses or making yourself too excited or too sleepy or too dull. Rhododendron really excels at this. It brings this lucidity to the mind. It's really interesting. And I have this excerpt from the article right here I want to share. Rhododendron essential oil exudes a quiet yet invigorating presence, offering freshness and clarity that encourage lightheartedness and mental stillness. It transports one to a place of quietude and respite, where its aromatic chemistry fills the mind with lucidity, Nepal's frankincense. That sums it up. And honestly, lucidity and Nepal's frankincense, if I was to only share 3 words, that's what that would be about this plant when in relation to the holistic mind. And here's something to admit. As an aromatherapist, we're guilty of learning about seeking and working with oils from around the world. I'm very guilty of this. I just got two new bottles of rhododendron. So we can have and, it's not choosing one or the other, right? There are analogs. In a previous episode with Dr. Ablard, we were talking about analogs. You know, I'm seeking an analog from North America. This rhododendron is so unique and so of its place. It speaks of that from the Himalayan mountains. There is an analog in North America. But it's just interesting when you fall in love with something. There's not just one thing, right? So there's so much to explore here at home. And though rhododendron is a total gem, it's genuinely just lucidity and Nepal's frankincense. When you work with frankincense, you get that stillness of the mind and the calmness and this ease, not too tight, not too loose. There's a lot to share. So if you're interested in rhododendron, I hope you enjoy the article. Go to nycaromatica.com. It's in the blog. So here's something fun I want to share. In line with analogs, I'd like to share a quote from Kurt Schnaubelt. Having a sip of my beautiful water there. Very influential book here, Medical Aromatherapy. So I'm not sure if I shared this quote before, but I always shared it in level one certification classes and level two. Again, speaking of analogs, are you ready? One of the most puzzling problems for any newcomer, and even for advanced aromatherapy enthusiasts, is the broad interchangeability of oils that is often possible without loss of effectiveness. Very often, conditions respond to the use of essential oils regardless of which oils are being used. There's a lot more that said this, page 121 of the book, Medical Aromatherapy. I love sharing that. And often when I'm with, like at a company health fair or even just working with one-on-one or doing a workshop, someone's like, what's good for that? It's like, you know what? Guess what? There's an array of oils we can choose from. I can choose to focus only on oils from North America, maybe only oils from Australia, maybe only oils from India and up towards Nepal, Afghanistan. You get the point, right? From South America, Central America. We can choose because honestly, we don't need 100 essential oils. We can probably just beautifully work with 5 or 10 if we really want to stretch out there. And I really enjoy that quote. And furthermore, I think it's important to keep harping on less is more in aromatherapy. It's true. Not even just from there's the concentrated component, all the resources that are taken, but you can really harm tissue, your body with too much essential oil. And here I have highlighted page 94 from, again, Medical Aromatherapy. Most of the components showed their highest effectiveness at rather low concentrations. 1 drop is all we need, especially for holistic mental, emotional applications. Of course, if we're working with sickness like infections, that's a bit different, or pain management. However, pain management, I've seen this happen several times. Pain management works by smelling oils. You work with the receptor sites, and I've seen pretty recently too. I was at a workshop and one woman we were smelling, I forget, doesn't matter. Remember that quote from Kurt Schnaubelt. She often has pain in her head from an injury. And after we did my guided meditation with this one oil, or I think it was a blend, she's like, my pain is gone. So this is really powerful stuff to remember. Less is always more. All right. So some highlights. I have everything is special. All the people that have been guests on this podcast and every personal project I've shared, I think it's all quite special. So thank you. But I have something I want to share because it came up recently. So last up is a little bit of bitterness and a little bit of sweetness. So you're probably a bit tired of me talking about Hecate. And Hecate has come up a lot. This, for some reason, is an archetype that has been with me since I was in my late teens. So this archetype is in the liminal spaces. Hello, Brian. Liminal. She goes to the underworld, but has torches, keys, and other tools. She is illuminating when darkness seems to, here's that word again, overwhelm. The archetype, like others and other tools, such as essential oils, can help us break stagnation, break the overwhelm, tap into clarity, promote stillness, not too tight, not too loose. So, first, I want to share some heaviness, some darkness, and then I want to share some sweetness. But as I was reflecting on these poems and then this composition, all of these pieces have lightness and darkness, and there's always the middle ground. So I recently wrote this very short verse because I've been reading about Lilith. So I'll keep using the word archetype. So Lilith is the quote wild woman. She's the one that goes off on her own, and does terrible things. She she wanted to be on top in sex, heaven forbid. So here's two poems inspired by Lilith, and it's called When Lilith Met Hecate. Shedding the skin of false dreams, only cool diamonds remained. Guided by shadow at the crossroads, they transformed into stars. When Lilith met Hecate. So I know myself, and of course I had to write a haiku based off that free verse that I put together, and here's the haiku version. When Lilith met Hecate, false dreams left behind became stars at the crossroads, guided by shadow. All right. And now I want to share a special moment of many special moments. And recently I was in touch with Juliana Kiriva of Olfactory Sounds. Learn more, hear more, season 2, episode 13. But we were just in touch on LinkedIn. And Juliana hears scent. She is a choral director, performer, aromatherapist, and artist. And I have a drum roll for you. One word, please. Jasmine. So I'd like you to get your jasmine out if you have it. If you have the plant, go up to the plant, go get a flower. If you have the absolute or even a pomade, anything jasmine related, get it, please. So we need to balance out the heaviness with lightness. With Hecate and Lilith, we need a little jasmine, right? We need a little rose and blue tansy and gardenia to balance our Lilith and our Hecate. So I have to laugh at myself. I'm like, Amy, enough with these archetypes. And now you bring Lilith into the mix. So we do need the lightness. With the bitter, we need the sweet and the salty. But with too much sweet and salty, we need the sour and the bitter, the umami, the whole thing. So I've been thinking of Juliana's jasmine composition. I've been listening to it again, and I want to share this piece with you. But again, please go to season 2, episode 13. Definitely check out her and what she's doing now. So again, season 2, episode 13. Much happens in a few years, right? So I'm going to share this jasmine piece she composed just for our episode, and she's done a lot more since we were together. I might talk over it as we were listening. Get out your jasmine and smell. Oh my goodness. That I feel is an entire love affair. And I don't know about you, when I listen to music, like especially stringed or like Carnegie Hall type music, I'll call it, it goes through my body. And I've been smelling the jasmine with it, and the sensations going through my body into my legs, through my feet are just amazing. So thank you, Juliana. Thank you, listeners. Again, I want to take a special thank you to Juliana Kariva, Ben DeHart, Hecate, the high school students, the person who said aromatherapy is just for rich white women. And no, I said plants are for everybody. So as we part ways, thinking of jasmine, thinking of the bitter and the sweet, and the salty and the sour and the umami, thank you for spending time with me. Are you listening while driving? Are you on your bike? Are you cleaning? Are you cooking? Let me know. And let me know if there's anything you'd like to ponder as a topic for Essential Aromatica. So until the next time we meet, please subscribe to the Essential Aromatica podcast on your preferred platforms, Spotify, Apple, Google, other platforms. Please leave a review and share with others the podcast, who you might think are interested in topics covered on this podcast. So thank you again. I really appreciate your time. And signing off from Lower Manhattan next to One World Trade. Ciao for now.